The regulated industries convenience store COAM machines are open for play today. Chris Bonsek, you and Brad Mahan, I want to tell you all thanks for bringing the machines from the what do you call it, your laboratory, or where you investigate and testing lab of the Lottery Commission. This is part of your job to check those, test them, make sure they're operating properly and they're legit. And we appreciate you bringing them to demonstrate to the committee today how they work and what you got. We'll have a couple of different times between bills where we might have a break. And this is Chris Bonsek. He's our expert, skillful COAM player. He's going to show you how to work them. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we're going to call our meeting to order, and we want to hear House Bill 437. Representative Howard, I believe he is in progress trying to get here. And in the meantime, if you want to look in your folders, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to hear his bill first. All of these will be hearings only today to get us in position to move quickly next week. This first bill is about fuel dispensing from self-service establishments and to try to get some help for folks with disabilities. You've got in your file, it's LC 338690S. And that is the version that passed the House. That's not a substitute of this committee. It was over there. Next bill, we have Chairman Powell here to present HB 544, dealing with the COAM industry, hence the machines here today to show us how these work. The Lottery Commission has agreed to leave them here for another couple of days so we can come in and have free play, no redemptions. Sorry about that. You can come in all weekend. We're going to keep them here till next Tuesday, if possible. I don't know if the Secretary of the Senate is going to make me cover them up during other meetings or not, but in our meetings, you're free to take a look at them. And finally, we have House Bill 449, which is from Representative Vance Smith about all type of, I guess, warnings for underground digging. And there's a subcommittee substitute that Senator Tippins has prepared. We'll let him explain the changes he is proposing to that underlying bill. I'm hoping we can hear most of these today. We're going to go quick as we can. If not, we will be meeting again on Tuesday, 3:30 in this room. So we'll start. If we got Representative Howard, can somebody check in the hall, see if we got him here yet?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
This gentleman said about these machines where it's some lab where you test them. Do you test them for, like,
hacking, or what do you test for?
We test the operability and communication of the machines themselves. We also verify that the software that the laboratories that they have sent it off to is indeed the way it's supposed to be.
But if someone were to figure out a way to hack those machines, can you find that in there? Do you have people that do forensic audits on them?
We do not in our gaming laboratory. It is more oriented towards the integration of machines within the
Who would you call to do a forensic audit on a machine like that?
be a good question.
Dominion? You know where I'm going with that, don't you? Thank you. I was just curious. Appreciate it.
Chairman Powell, I'm going to give him about 2 more minutes. If he doesn't make it, we're going to proceed with yours, okay? Senator Lucas.
Mr. Chairman, I on last Tuesday, I asked, and we tabled House Bill 328, and I asked that the two sides get together. I've talked to both sides. I've talked to one who's in the room. I've talked to the other side, and they say they got no agreement, that they've been trying to deal with that DOT for the last 5 years on that thing. So at this time, I'd like to move that we take House Bill 328 off the table.
That's bold.
Catherine, what is, so when a bill's on the table, can be taken off by motion? All right, is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I move that House Bill 328 do pass.
Before you go there, let me recognize Senator Albers. All right, well, hold on. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
I had spoken with Senator Albers this morning. I think he may have been in those negotiations. Let me ask him to report on that before we, as part of our discussion at least here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday afternoon, we had a meeting with all of the stakeholders and the bill's author from the House down in the mini-mez. We had representatives from AT&T, Verizon, all the cable companies, GMA, City of Alpharetta brought some, or had some folks on the line, several of the lobbyists in the building, and talked about several different things. The one thing that everybody agreed upon was if GDOT were to update the rates, the cities conform against those rates in order to have consistency everywhere. The second thing is the language that's in that bill, underlying bill, is woefully out of date. It's still referencing payphones and trunk lines and things that have long since gone. So I committed that I would call GDOT and talk to Commissioner McMurray, as well as we need to, off session, go through some of that old code, because just simply is out of date, needs to be modernized. Yesterday afternoon, I did talk to DOT Commissioner McMurray, and I asked him what the status of that was, because there were concerns that it was brought up in several meetings and was tabled. And he said that was true, but it wasn't because there was a problem. They were just getting feedback along the way. And he is more than confident that by this early fall, that is absolutely going to be set by the DOT. The one thing everybody agreed yesterday is once the DOT rate is set to something they can all conform to, then that would work. So I believe within the next 4 or 5 months, this problem will solve itself, and it'll give us a chance to work on cleaning up the underlying code, which is the real big part of this problem anyhow. So the rate's going to go down from $5,000, no doubt about it. It's probably not going to be $200 though. It'll probably be somewhere that makes a lot more sense for everybody. So I think there's a legitimate compromise that's already in process and probably doesn't really need this legislation right now.
Senator Lucas, you got, were you aware of that? Did you reference it?
I talked to the senator this morning as well, and then I talked to the folks from AT&T, and they say they've been talking about this for 5 years, that they reached no agreement on it. And I was hoping that they would take us out the middle, because it's all about money, and it's GMA and the rest of the folks. And I disagree with what they're doing, but I thought in a way of trying to make sure that they could come together. They said they've been trying to come together for 5 years. They had the opportunity to come together. I listened to Senator Alvin, and then I listened to the folks from AT&T, and they told me they've not reached any agreement, that they've been talking about this thing with DOT for 5 years. So after I talked to the two of them, I just said we might as well go ahead and do what we need to do.
After hearing Senator Albert's report, you still
They not
moving
come
to-
together. They've not come together.
Senator Albers?
Hey, just
You may reply.
to echo or to comment on something that Senator Lucas mentioned, my understanding is, yes, they have been certainly working on it for 5 years. I think through the General Assembly and back and forth between the providers and the cities. What hasn't been involved actually was the DOT. And the DOT now is involved because, again, what they set, other people are going to conform to. But based on the conversations I have with DOT, they have not been involved. They've only been involved for the last short amount of time, and they've given us a date certain to correct their problem.
But we got the chairman of the Transportation Committee, like me, they would call the chairman of the Transportation Committee.
I told the committee the last time we discussed this that DOT was in progress with that, and they'd be having something coming out. So I'm well aware that this really involves transportation, but, you know, it's one of those things.
Chairman,
We're a
Anybody else?
regulated industry today, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Council.
Any further? I recognize
Just
Senator Gooch's comments. We're
further
discussing the due pass motion.
Right. So I'm aware of what the Commissioner GDOT's been looking at. They've been talking about it for months. Some of us got calls back before session from some cable providers because they were afraid the rates were going the other direction and not down. I think the Commissioner is looking at it now to get it right. What he tries to do is charge enough to cover his utility department where all of his employees are working. We don't know what that number's going to be. So to think that it's going to somehow miraculously go from 5,000 to 500 is probably not going to happen. But I do believe passing this bill today will send a strong message to get it done as soon as possible. And I would like to also say that we already have about $300 million of RDOF funds coming from Washington for projects that are already about to be put out for broadband expansion.
Thank
The $4.8 billion that's coming from DC are going into 4 buckets, one of which will be broadband eligible projects. So the cities and the counties are going to get a lot of expansion over the next 2 or 3 years of new fiber, new coax, and so forth. So there's going to be more revenue for cities because of all of that as well. So I don't think what we're doing today is going to hurt the cities like we heard in testimony a couple of days ago. I think it's going to be the opposite. I think there's going to be more development, more growth, more broadband because of the federal funds and because of what we do with this bill. So I support it.
Senator Mullis, you're recognized. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with what Senator Gooch said, and my good friend from Macon. I think it's important to send a message, but I don't want this to lose, and that'd be the wrong message. But I think to help push things along would be a good idea to vote it forward.
Any further discussion? It's the same group here. I got you. That y'all tabled and you took it off. You reconsidered, you retabled, and everybody's.
Not exactly.
Okay, some of the people. Senator Albers, you got further comments?
I just wondering, we don't even have this bill in our folder right now before we would take another vote on it, do we?
Nope. It was considered the other day and
I'll
was
just have to
tabled.
remember it all.
Yeah.
Legis.ga.gov.
That's why you're.
Further comments?
One other comment.
Yes.
I wanted to propose an amendment, but I don't think we have the votes to pass the amendment. That would lower the cable fees from 5% to 3% to make it more equal to the other providers. But I'm afraid that could kill the final passage of the bill at this point. So I'll hold that amendment because I've talked to several of you and you
Well,
wouldn't
I'm
be
going
able
to tell
to
you,
vote
I
for it.
didn't receive that amendment 24 hours before this meeting, and so I'm not going to consider that here.
All right.
If you have one, I'm supposing that could be on the floor if need
Right.
be. Senator Brass, I recognize you for comments about the do pass motion.
Yeah, just I'd like to, maybe another possible way we can encourage these providers, that they're asking for this, saying that it's going to help them get into unserved areas. Maybe potentially we could sunset it, and we do this obviously not now, but we sunset it, and if they're not going to, in say 4 or 5 years, we haven't seen any progress, then it goes back the way it was.
Okay. Any further comments? All right, all in favor of the motion do pass, raise your hand. This is,
Come on, Frank, there you go.
Was that
all opposed. All right, I got two noes. Did-
One no and a Schaefer.
He didn't say right
hand, he didn't
say left hand, he just said raise your hand.
All right, we're quite the interesting committee in here, folks. Sure. I mean, I think the rules are if it's on the table, it can be removed at any time. We had vetted the bill the other day, so we gave, as Senator Lucas says, it looks like folks tried to work it out and didn't.
Chairman Calderon, I'd like to thank Senator Albert for voting to reconsider the other day.
Yes.
He might regret that decision now, but
Indeed, I did.
I'm hoping you will repay the favor if he ever needs it in the spirit of congeniality. Mr. Chairman Powell, come forward if you will, please, sir, to our podium. You're not required to wear your mask since we're socially distanced while you're speaking, but we're going to keep ours on when we're not talking. You certainly may, and you've got about 7 other experts lined up to talk either for or against your bill. We received notification Representative Howard is not going to make it. I do have 2 people that signed up to speak. I don't know if they're for or against House Bill 437. If we have time here at the end of this meeting, I will hear from you all in case he decides to go forward with that bill. Now we'll be considering House Bill 544.
Can we make Bonita the official committee mascot?
I like that. That could be a motion. Mr. Chairman, I received from you this afternoon a proposed committee sub, and as I explained to you, our rules require it at least 24 hours in advance, and that's something in the discretion of the chair after receiving ideas. I am going to take that into consideration. We're not taking action today. I appreciate all your continuing efforts to perfect your bill. Tell us what's in the main bill.
I want to thank you, and I want to thank each and every one of y'all. And I want to start out by giving a little bit of history, because I realize that sometimes a lot of people, as intelligent as the Senate members are, maybe a lot of them are like House members, there's not many of y'all that's been here as long as David Lucas or myself. And we have actually been in the weeds on these COAM, the rules and the regs in the COAM, so I want to give just a brief history. COAMs go back, gosh, I guess since there was ever the invention of a game of chance. But in the state of Georgia, because we have a prohibition on gambling, and gambling is a definition of paying out of cash. So non-cash redemption is what these machines are called. And that's these anywhere from the Class A, the crane games, and those feel-good type of fluffy games, or the mechanical machines, or these machines that you see back here today. You know, these things have continued to grow over the years because people do like these as a form of entertainment. And to move forward, in the 90s, this industry got out of hand, quite frankly, because not just the greed of the industry for making money, but also from the greed of law enforcement, business people, and they started paying out cash. And they paid out cash, and there was a time that it was called the video poker industry that it came in. And it got so much out of hand because law enforcement didn't want to enforce it, because quite frankly, I remember time and time again that we had people that talked about them. It's my money, so it's my business to do what I want to do. But still, it was illegal. And all of that came to a crashing halt probably around 2000 or 01. And the industry almost went out of business. It was almost put out of business at that time because of a lot of people understood that it was illegal to pay out cash. So then we started adapting the rules and the regulations and the laws that dealt with these machines. They've gone back and forth and steadily promoted to what you see today as these games. In 2013, we made a massive jump forward to put controls of these machines under the Georgia Lottery Commission because there was revenue being made. Today there's a 10% split that goes to the State Lottery Commission. Now, how that's operated in the state of Georgia, you've got the master license holders that produce that provide the machines, and then you've got the retail establishments that actually have them on their locations, and they monitor them, and they supposedly in most cases abide by the law. And out of that, 5% of the proceeds go to the lottery from the retailer and 5% from the master license holder. So, you know, that's a business proposition. It has steadily increased, and I will tell you that it is the fastest growing venue of revenue for the Georgia Lottery, even over their games. In 2020, these games produced $91 million to the Lottery Commission, not including another 11-point-something million off of decals and license fees. So that's over $101 million, and the lottery has spent virtually zero. They budgeted $5,000 for marketing. So now we move forward. And before I talk about the bill itself, let me talk a little bit further about the industry. The Lottery Commission, they regulate this. These folks, not beside the 10%, most of it is considered that the COAM industry itself produces roughly about a 17% tax. And that's pretty good coming off of one industry. So there you have it. The dark side to this industry, highly competitive. One of the things that we've tried to do besides the number one rule, was to stop and to prohibit any of the practices of paying out cash. That's number one. But we've tried to work internally with a lot of issues to stop some of the questionable operations, such as master license holders doing inducements to the retailers. It's almost like picking ducks to these folks, that they'll come in, they'll pay under the table to the certain license holders to switch, to break contracts, to do all these things. But we found in the history of this enterprise was that to do away with these inducements is to make a better and a more honest industry out of it. One of the things you have to remember is these machines aren't freestanding. These machines are hooked into the terminals that go to the Lottery Commission, so they know what these machines are doing. Right now in the redemption statutes, when they win points on these machines, then they can trade them for merchandise in the store, lottery tickets, or certain merchandise. And what we're asking now is to move forward, to move a little bit further. The gift card that you'll see in this that we're recommending, that's already been done once, and it proved that it was good for the industry. But it's even better today. It would be even better today because it would not only raise more money for the businesses, but also for the lottery. But the most important thing would be that it would absolutely put a standard to bear to the retailers out there that if you're dumb enough to pay out cash, then you're not only too dumb to breathe, but you're too dumb to be in this business, and you have a lifetime prohibition. And that's the real guts of the security and what's good for the people of Georgia with these gift cards.
Let
Now,
me get back to that cash. You said cash was prohibited originally?
cash is prohibited originally, through the whole history, and today.
And why was that? Because that made it
Because it's
gambling?
unconstitutional, Senator. The only way that you can pay out cash in the state of Georgia is by a constitutional amendment. So it's illegal to pay out cash. That's the reason we don't have horse racing. That's the reason you don't have destination resort casinos. That's the reason you don't have sports betting today. It
Aren't
takes a
these deemed to be
constitutional amendment.
lottery games?
These are lottery games.
So they are legal under the Constitution if they are deemed lottery games?
Well, they're not defined as a lottery game, and never have been.
All right, and your bill doesn't change that, so
Does not.
cash would be prohibited because that is, I think you said, deemed to be gambling.
That's right.
Okay.
And I think the backdoor method of that is that if we allow the lottery to take in and let them start authorizing the paying out of cash, I think we're circumventing the purpose of the constitutional amendment for the benefit of the
Okay.
people of Georgia.
All right.
All right.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. You're
No.
giving us a good history.
Now,
Proceed.
I want to go over the bill, if you don't mind, and Les is certainly the expert on this. This bill is brought to you by GMOA, and that's the Georgia Amusement Game Association. Right now, there's roughly 160 master license holders in the state. GMOA, I think, is around 128 that are members of their association. And these are the folks that have tried to do it right for the biggest part. We're talking about family legacy-owned businesses that's been in this business forever. They're the folks that made it through the good times and the bad, and they have a vested stake in this industry, that things are done correct. But also, as with all industries, you have a few that are questionable. We have some of the larger or some of the master license holders in the state. They continue to practice predatory practices when it comes to inducements and things like that, or backdoor methods of trying to take the retailers from another. And, and that's more that some of those folks can address. But at the end of the day, most of the operators in the state of Georgia, they want to see it done right. So what we're proposing in this legislation is several items. I will tell you the first is that in the lottery board, back several years ago, we created a lottery oversight board The governor appoints those members, and they work under the Lottery Commission. But given the fact that so much money is being raised by this industry, we're proposing 2 appointees. One is the chairperson of the COAM Advisory Board, would be elevated to be on the lottery board, and that the governor would also put another person who is affiliated with the industry to give them a voice in what's going on. Several reasons for that. In the current language that the lottery operates with the COAM industry, there's very little due process in here. It's usually whatever the corporation says, then that's the way it is. Even down to hearing judges. In my life, I've never seen that the prosecutor picked the own judge. So you'll see that in this bill, that the governor would appoint out of a recommended 14 hearing officers. The governor would appoint these so that then the commission would have to take a pick. You see a lot of issues on due process in here when it deals with violators, so that these people aren't at the mercy of privateer DAs. And when I talk about that, that was some original language, but we took it out because the Lottery Commission asked, because we worked with the Lottery Commission on most of this language. There was a situation that some of your DAs in this state, they will hire private attorneys and give them special AD district attorney status. And I understand it's not supposed to be that they're paid on commission basis, but that's exactly how some of them have been paid. That's not correct, guys. And it's not right that if a case is made by the lottery against a retailer or a master license holder, that it goes to a hearing officer that's appointed by the administrator under the Lottery Commission. There needs to be due process for the sake of fairness and what's right. And you'll see through this bill a lot of that language is there. Section 2. Well, originally we were codifying case law, but because of some of the issues that y'all have heard from some of the other interest in this that's tried to put poison pills out there, we're certainly going to point out some things that could not be necessary at this point. Section 2 basically describes that if you win these points on these machines, then if it's legal to sell, then it's illegal to redeem for something that's fair. And that's what will give the input to folks to play these games. So if it's gas or it's alcohol or tobacco or whatever it may be, but if it's legal, then it can be traded for, not cash. Section 3 deals with the Class A machines. Now, what you have back here is not Class A. These are the Class B machines. The Class A are those things like the crane games where you put your money in and you try to drop a crane to win something. Georgia is one of the lowest in the nations. Most of them go from whatever on up to unlimited amount that they can put in the machines as far as dollar amounts. We've moved this from $5 to a $50 cap on whatever prizes they want to put into those Class A machines. Section 3 also gives a definition for non-cash gift cards. It defines the gift cards. We're saying that until the Lottery Commission, that they have been working and for, well, I don't know, it's been several months, but they've got a pilot program on lottery gift cards. They drug their feet. Your House Lottery Oversight Committee met with them 18 months ago, and it took over a year for them to finally devise a program, a pilot program for COAM gift cards. And, you know, they're doing what they're doing, but we know how bureaucracy operates at times. So this basically says that until they get their lottery gift card in place and up and running, that a retailer, if they sell a gift card, such as a Longhorns or a Home Depot or a Walmart or whatever that is, if they've got those gift cards hanging on their merchandise rack, then they can trade those gift cards. And remember, they don't get paid cash for these type of cards. Section 6 also defines the lottery gift cards. This bill provides in Section 4 for on-site inspection by the Lottery Commission COAM Division within 6 months of operation to be sure they're in compliance. It clarifies that the receipt of a gift card or a lottery gift card is an act within the store for that redemption. It reinforces, as I'm going down, it reinforces contractual rights. It establishes finally specific late fees for Class A and B machines if somebody has forgot to renew their licenses, and that's pretty heavy. It assures open, competitive, and public auctions, which is something that I consider to be good business practices, not only for the state. If a business is out of compliance, if there is something that says that they're going to lose their license or lose whatever, then instead of it being a private auction done by the Lottery Commission, gentlemen, then this would be done at a public auction in the light of day so that these folks could see. And then the state would be the beneficiaries of that by doing a public auction of anything. If there's been an infraction, it would be that the penalties would be that heavy. Burden of proof would be placed on the corporation finally. Provides due process rights for the licensees. The 50-50 rule. Back years ago, we had a situation in these, when I said in the old days of these COAM machines, a lot of your fraternal organizations, your VFWs, your American Legions and them, they had these machines into place. But one of the things that we did to prohibit these mini casinos after the 90s and all of that, we said that a business that has COAM machines, that at least 50% of the revenue has to be from non-video game revenue. And that basically put these machines, these fraternal organizations out of place. One of the bad effects of that was that a lot of those, like the VFWs and the American Legions and AMVETS and all of these, that was their revenue source to help veterans programs and those type of programs. What we're saying in this is that they can do it. It does a carve out on the 50-50 rule, and it says that these folks have to be a 501c3, having been in business for 10 years, and also remember that they'll fall subject to the inspections of the Lottery Commission, and these machines are plugged in to the Lottery Commission so they can see what's going on, just like they do today at all the stores. Burden of proof, again, in several places. Existing contracts remain. Reinforces that inducements can't be received or given. Digital signage could be produced, provided by the master licensee. Georgia Administrative Procedures Act. They're not under that right now, and we think
What section of the bill is that? I've had several people mention those
that would be
provisions.
under Section 12.
12, okay, thank you.
And it's riddled through different sections about the Procedures Act. Section 12 and 13, especially 13, adopts that the COAM Advisory Board will adopt the rules and regulations according to the Georgia Administrative Procedures Act. It sets July the 1st of 2022 or sooner for the creation of that lottery gift card. Section 15 addresses concerns with the appeal procedures and basically says that if the appeal is lost, then all the money is forfeited to the Lottery Commission. And then also it gets into the very end, it says appeal provisions that at the end that they can be clarified by the business courts of the Superior Court of Fulton County. There's a lot of stuff in here, gentlemen. There's a lot of things in here, and I can tell you, and y'all know better than I because y'all sit on probably one of the most illustrious committees in the Senate. But y'all understand the business of business. Y'all understand that you've got the folks who, and it's up to us to set the parameters, the rules and regulations so that things are done right. But you've got a few out there that they have ulterior motives. I have no doubt in my mind that some of y'all have been reached out to by a few of the operators, because I certainly have. I've listened to them and I've shown them all the respect possible. for various and sundry reasons. Some of them are concerned because that the lenders are concerned about the uncertainty if the game changes and they can't continue to do business the way they're doing it. We have one of the groups that I think that maybe some of y'all have received some of the information. And I call this a poison pill, something that I know every one of y'all know what a poison pill is. One of the things that concerned me that in the House when this bill passed out, there was a couple attempts of using the poison pill by saying, oh, well, let's raise the split. Let's put another 5% on this industry. Well, that worked a little bit, but it was took off. Went to the floor, then it became an issue again, and it was defeated. Now it's over to y'all, and now I read this stuff that's being put out. And this is a poison pill by the threats. Oh, we don't want to see raising the tax because that would be a poison pill. Yes, it would. But I would submit to each and every one of you gentlemen that are logical, and y'all been in the legislating business long enough to know that if the day comes, when it comes, to raise that commission split that goes to the lottery, that day should come after the number one issue in here about the gift cards is put into effect so that we can see how much money is being raised from both sides instead of arbitrarily trying to pick out and raise revenues without knowing what's going to be the effect. That, gentlemen, is what this bill does, and I'll be glad to stand for questions, and Mr. Snyder is probably far more eloquent with his legal acumen than I will be.
Okay. Well, I have a number of senators lit up wanting questions, and I'm going to recognize my vice chairman, the chairman of banking, Senator Brass, for a question of.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Chairman Powell, if you get to the point on one of these questions you think needs the technical expertise of Les Snyder, you just let him know, and you can sit where you are, Les. I can
Thank you, Mr.
turn
Chairman.
your mic on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, thank you for bringing this. And, I know there's been several versions going around, and so for us, it's been a little difficult to keep up. So in your version, as far as the gift cards go, wasn't there on one version, was there a phase out of those when you can go get those separate gift cards like the Longhorn, the Belt? Wasn't there like a phase out of that in one version? Is that accurate?
Those would phase out. Lottery gift card would be, or if a master license holder did a gift card, but we're aiming toward the lottery gift card.
That's what, so your version has a phase out of that?
Phase out of these
Okay.
other gift cards.
And am I accurate in saying that it's going to be easier to kind of track the money? If we
Absolutely.
have just that one card, we'll know where the money's leaving
If
to.
you have
where it's-
one or two of what we call legacy cards,
Mhm.
then it can be tracked with the technology with the plug-ins to the machines, and these cards would be also tracked.
Okay.
So that you would know where that money's being spent, what locations, what businesses, whatever it may be. And there's your second part of the great positive to this bill.
Okay.
Not only does this produce a tremendous amount of enhanced revenue to the Lottery Commission, it produces a tremendous amount of extra sales tax to the state of Georgia that goes into the general fund.
And if follow-up, Mr. Chairman,
Go
if you
right
don't mind, is the purpose of that phase-out just to kind of give the lottery a little time to set up their gift card? Is that kind of the purpose of that? Or?
The lottery says they're going to have their gift card at some point, but it's been a pretty slow drag over there, to be quite frank with you.
Mm-hmm.
So these temporary cards that are sold right now, that's just a starting point. And then when these other cards are done, then they move forward into those.
Got it. Thank you. And I've
Yes, sir.
got another question, but I'll save it because I think somebody else will probably ask it.
All right. Well, I'll recognize Senator Ginn for a question. Chairman Ginn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Powell, appreciate you bringing the bill. One of the things that I know the Lottery Corporation works with other states on like Powerball, Mega Millions, those kind of things. the way these credit cards would work, could you expend the funds outside of Georgia, or would they be relegated to be spent all in Georgia?
I think ultimately it could be like a legacy card. And that way it would be if they win plays on these cards and it gives them the credits and they can spend it wherever. They can spend it on lottery tickets. They can spend it at whatever store or location. But they can put parameters on those cards with the technology today that can't pay out cash. That's quite simple to do. They could also, well, on this, and I'm not a banking expert of how this works, but I'm also told with the legacy card that the lottery or whoever would make another pile of money because they'll be paid the commission for the use of these cards. Senator Albert seems to know more about this than I do, but that's what I understand, and if I'm wrong, I stand to be corrected.
Senator Albers, you have a question?
No,
Okay.
I think he's right.
Senator Kennedy, I recognize you for a question. Wait, I'm sorry, Senator Mullis has seniority on you.
No, that's okay.
Oh, no, yeah.
I must be one of the old guys here.
Oldest in our caucus. Most seniority.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel the oldest. I think Sheila has me now. But anyway, I want to thank you for bringing this forward. And my question is on the gift card. Would you say that having a gift card or bringing that up to fruition would help eliminate some of the, let's say, darker sides of the activity of giving out cash or under the table or other things? But the gift card would help eliminate all that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
The number one issue, and there's been so much confusion, you know, this industry has been demonized by a lot of people. And a lot of it's justifiable, but most of it is unjustifiable, gentlemen. They're business people. These folks, there's folks, families have been in this business forever, and they've done it the right way. But I always continue to hear in testimony when we have hearings, or somebody always comes up and they talk about, all these machines, somebody's paying out cash. Well, let me tell you, that's been illegal, always has been. And the penalties are tremendous. It's a lifetime ban. Second offense, it's a felony if your machine is not hooked up to that online terminal to the lottery. So when I hear people say, well, you got these backdoor places, they got them machines are paying out cash, and you have to go through the speakeasy door in the back of the building or whatever. I said, you know what? You need to call somebody, and if you think it's because a sheriff or somebody ain't doing their job, you need to give me or somebody to the lottery, or we'll get somebody to go look at them, because that's illegal. If those machines aren't publicly out in the open, and if they're not hooked up to the lottery directly, they're illegal. Those machines are illegal. And that's the final game of trying to put an end to any of this. But we all are familiar with human greed. We know that we've always got some folks who are going to use the greed factor. And that's what we're trying to put. That's what we come up here on the second Monday of every January to write laws to try to correct these situations so that legitimate industry can operate legitimately.
Thank you.
So you're saying that it has safeguards, so I wouldn't be able to...
Your mic is not on because I hadn't recognized you for a question yet. Hold on. I'll recognize you, Senator Rett, for a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you say there's safeguards, so I wouldn't be able to go to Senator Lucas' juke joint down there in Macon. Is that correct?
I don't know there's anything can keep you from going to Lucas's juke joint, but it's specifically what safeguards, Senator.
How would I use that?
Are you talking about going to the juke joint to play the machines? Well, if he's licensed and has passed scrutiny of the Lottery Commission for a license, then he could, and I'd say dance on.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, good to be with you.
Always.
Thanks for visiting with us. I've got a few questions about some particulars in the bill, but a couple of things you said confused me a little bit, and I want to make sure I'm on the same wavelength with you. So we talked about in your initial responses to the chairman's questions about why cash payouts are prohibited, and you said correctly, the Constitution says that's gambling, gambling's illegal. But I thought you said something that almost seemed to suggest that maybe you had the opinion that a constitutional amendment would be required for your gift card. Do you have that opinion?
No, because a gift card is not cash.
Okay.
A gift card is bartering for non-cash items.
So if you play the machine and you have winnings of $100, and then that $100 is downloaded onto some form of a card, and you can take that card and then go buy goods with it, groceries, whatever, clothes,
Yes.
whatever. What is the difference then, other than the physical handling of cash?
Well, the
is
difference
what
would
is the
be,
difference in
Senator,
the
in
two,
my-
and how, hold on, let me make sure you understand. I'm trying to figure out what is that difference, and I thought that's what you were alluding to, maybe that you thought there was a concern here, so if, go ahead.
I think that the difference is that gambling has always, especially in law, has always been the paying out of cash. Cash is what has been the definition of gambling. You can run a horse track, but as long as there is no cash being bet on it that could be transferred, then you can run them. But
So-
once you start paying out cash, it takes a constitutional amendment. You can have every casino that wants to come in, and they can build golf courses in the form of a destination. But if they're running table games and such, if they're paying out cash, then it's illegal unless there's a constitutional amendment. The same with sports betting. Sports betting is unique. Today, you don't just go to a, quote, casino. Most sports betting is done on your telephone today, and it's done from out of state. Produces no jobs, produces a little bit of the take, but it still takes a constitutional amendment to do that. The Lottery Commission, the statutes that established the Lottery Commission were very specific about how and what they can do and how they can do it. Now, I'm not a legal mind, but I would certainly think that in the nature of good news or good feeling, that what the chairman asked was about, could the lottery run the COAMs and pay out cash? I don't think they can, because the perception is that would take a constitutional amendment. And out of an abundance of respect for the citizens of Georgia, that if there's going to be gambling, they need to be the ones through the proper process to decide that.
And I follow that, and so thanks for answering that. I think that answers my question. So I understand your answer to be the difference is cash, physical cash, can't be paid, but some instrument that has a cash value that can be redeemed to buy things is different.
As long as it doesn't pay cash.
Gotcha, okay.
Senator Lucas, did you have a question over there?
So I want to talk.
Let me let him ask one. Kennedy, I'm going to be right back to you.
Okay.
All right, just he's been holding his hand up.
I used to play them, went up $800, get gift certificate from Davis. And I go buy my shirts, Continental Sleeves shirts, that you put cufflinks in. The last year Roy Bond was in office, we were called in a special session just to deal with the machine, because I did a filibuster on the floor and we signed it that day. The difference is, and when I talked to the lottery, and Senator Miller was with me one day in the ante room, when I talked to them, the gift card is the best way to go, because the gift card, you can use it and redeem it, but you can't get cash. You got to pay the sales tax when you buy something, which means if they got to give, you win 500 points or 800 points on the machine, you get a gift card. That gift card, you can redeem at any store, but you can't redeem it for cash. You can buy a product with, but you got to pay sales taxes when you buy the product. The sales tax is a benefit to the state that we hadn't even seen. The biggest problem with the COAM machines, and when you had these cases, is that the paying out of cash money, actual cash money being paid out. And they have been tried, and they've cut all kinds of deals with folks from $3 million to $5 million on the thing. And the folks didn't get charged. They never got charged for a crime. They went in, got fingerprinted, came out, didn't get charged, agreed to pay $5 million or $3 million to get out. That has been the problem with the machines. I've been dealing with the folks, 'cause I used to own a juke joint. I had the jukebox, the pool table, and I used to pay my bills with my electric, my gas, my light. I used to pay the bills with the
What was the
jukebox
name
and
of
the
that?
pool table.
What was the name of that joint?
Luke's Lounge.
I like that. Gonna need to ever come in there.
But what I'm saying is, and then when you deal with the VFWs and everything, they changed the law and said that you had to have the product inside. You had to have the product inside. Your VFWs, they don't have room to keep gifts and stuff in the place. So if you give the gift card, then they can use that, and folks can go to Walmart, go buy gas, they can buy lottery tickets, whatever is legal for folks to do who are of the legal age, tobacco products and those kind of things. But
Right. I thought I had a question coming from you there, Senator Lucas.
Senator-
But that's that wasn't a question. I'm gonna get back to Senator Kennedy.
All right.
If your line
Thank
of
you, Mr.
questions.
Chairman. Back.
I'm doing that
Chairman
because
Powell.
he had our study committee. He's probably the most knowledgeable member on this.
Chairman, you probably know, we spent a little time on this as well on the Senate side. We had a very active Senate study committee over the summer, and several of us on the committee learned a little more than we knew beforehand, and so that gives us a perspective, but certainly not the historical perspective that you brought, so I appreciate that. A couple of things that are a little bit concerning, though, looking at lines 317 and 318, as you alluded to, I think, in some of your comments, one of the requirements and inherent parts of the model that the lottery has allowed is a 50-50 rule that I'm sure you're familiar with, that 50% of the sales of the location have to be something other than with COAM machines.
Correct.
And so one of the concerns I've got with lines 317 through 318, let me flip to that, is it says that gift certificates and gift cards sold at such locations shall be valued and constituted as gross income receipts at the time of the sale or issuance to the customer. What that means is the actual sale or winnings would be computed and part of the revenue deemed at the location. So that, it seems to me, a plain reading of that completely circumvents the 50-50 rule.
Can I?
I might ask.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
If I-
Whomever.
If I can address that. I think, Senator Kennedy, you make a good point, and just to avoid any problem in the committee substitute that I know Senator Cowes is going to look at, the word "or issuance" is taken out. What is being looked at here is, it's not the cards that you win as a redemption. It's only the cards that you, as a business, if you are, let's say you have a convenience store, but you sell gift cards to Walmart and to Kmart and to Kroger or whatever, you earn, that's part of the sales of your business. You're selling those cards. Now, those cards will never be used in your business. They'll be used at another business. And it wasn't fair to the retailer, if they sold the cards to customers, that they would have to get certain credit for a non-amusement sale. Now, clearly, there was no intent, and that's why the issuance part is going to be taken out, if the committee so decides, that if it is given as a redemption, it doesn't count as a sale. But if you are selling gift cards in your business in addition to gas and in addition to whatever else you're selling, that's as much a sale that you're doing as anything else. So the intent is simply to make sure that you get credit for gift cards you may sell that will never be redeemed at your store. And you will not.
I think I understand that, but I
Yeah.
don't think that addresses my question unless you're telling me that you've got maybe an amendment coming that will address my issue, which is, under what you've just described, Mr. Snyder, the amount of winnings that are then put on a card that is sold by the location to the customer is deemed part of the gross
No.
receipts.
The
And
winnings-
if in fact, hold on,
Yeah.
if in fact that's the case, then what I described as a problem
That's right.
exists, and you've completely obliterated the 50% rule.
No.
And so the committee understands the logical extension of that is you wind up with gaming rooms where you're not at a convenience store like we think of that sells lots of different things
Right.
with up to 9 machines at a location. Rather, you could have a business that has nothing but machines in it virtually, and maybe a couple of packs of peanuts.
Right, and we would be 100%. I know Representative Powell's against it, and I know I'm personally against it, and so is the association. What we're looking for is only those gift cards that you actually would sell to the public, not ones that anybody would win on a machine
Okay.
that they would get. That was clearly the intent, but
Okay.
clearly any language, and I'm happy to work with anybody to make sure that's 100% clear.
Few more questions, Mr. Chairman.
I'm
One of the things that
gonna let you
we,
go right ahead, because you know more about it than anybody else on the committee right now.
well, I don't know about that, but
Well,
thank you.
you chaired that study committee, so I think
So,
you do.
Mr. Snyder, we've talked about this, and I'm sure, Chairman Powell, you've heard about this, that there have been two primary problems that have plagued this industry, and you've talked about one of the two. One is cash payouts, and that's been a difficulty for a long time, and from different authorities, from district attorneys to the state to the lottery, that have tried to address this. And it's been a continual problem. I think certainly what happened 3 years ago with all the machines being hooked up to Interlot has made a huge difference, because the lottery now knows the actual numbers rather than the locations reporting them every Tuesday to the lottery. So that's very different. The other problem that is plagued is inducements. And that is where the locations are demanding of master license holders, or master license holders are offering to locations a split that is different from that which is prescribed in the laws that we passed. I don't see anything in this bill that addresses the very significant, what I think, and I think our study committee found, was a very significant problem in this industry of inducements. Is it in there and I've missed it, or can you address that, either one of you?
We've,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
we've addressed some a little bit on the lighter edges of the inducements. But let me be very straightforward. We didn't put a lot of stuff in here, and we did take some of the stuff out after we met with the Lottery Commission. We wanted to give extra, we wanted the Lottery Commission to put more forensic accountants to start doing more auditing, but they didn't feel like they wanted to do that. We tried to get to a point of having legal prosecutors that could go after these folks and to dig. You can find the inducements if you've got the auditors that can do it, but they didn't want to do it. So
Can you help me with that, Mr. Chairman? How would auditors help with that? Because by definition, the way the model works, inducements are off the grid or under the table. It's not done in a way that traditional accounting catches.
But a forensic auditor that goes in and looks at the books of a master, then they can look into it, and that's the only way to start connecting the dots as to where is the money going. We see that this is what was coming in on the machine, through the lottery, so we see a discrepancy here. So quite frankly, a lot of the stuff that should be in here is not in here because of the nature of these folks that we've all been talked to. They've been wearing my office out because we don't want this. Well, I know why some of them don't want it, because some of them are doing a whole lot better with inducements.
That's right.
There's a piece in here that I put in here especially for one of the masters that's in, that a couple of you guys share the district these folks are in, and they do it right. They're an old company. But he asked me the question one day. He said, you know, it's interesting that my guys have found 4 stores that wanted to put machines in, and we put the machines in, or we agreed that we would put machines in with them. They filed to the Lottery Commission and used our number, but we didn't get the contract signed yet. But they filed, and lo and behold, another company swept in and got all 4 of them. So yeah, do I suspect that there's somebody that works for the Lottery Commission in this particular district that falls into that might have tipped them off? There's a very strong possibility of that. So we're talking about a lot of angles that needs to be filled in. I'm sure that in your committee last year, your study committee, that you ran across the term fractional sales. Fractional sales, quite frankly, needs to be looked at. And whether this bill passes or not, I can assure you that after this session's over and when the Lottery Oversight Committee meets, we're going to start looking into things like fractional sales. And for the benefit of the members here, a fractional sale is you've got a big master license holder here that wants to play the predatory games with inducements. So they find a smaller insignificant or a smaller master license holder. And they let them go to do the work of the inducements, and then they sell the contracts to the bigger ones, so the bigger ones washes their hands. So these are the type of things that we're trying to, and we can't do it all in one bill, but we can do it gradually.
And I would just add to that, Senator Kennedy, that
Yes.
Your idea, it was in 217, about asking the master for certain financial documents. Representative Powell looked at that and said that that is something that he wanted to add, and it is in the substitute that I know Senator Cowsard will review. And I think from that point, it's a matter also of eventually looking at the location owner's records. And again, between the gift cards and the monitoring that Senator Brass talked about, you're going to be able to start to notice where all the money's coming from. And in this bill, we talked about not being able to do anything directly or indirectly, and ultimately having an agency with subpoena power that will be able to go after, not only to look at the financial documents that you have to put forward, but to go into a bank and whatever and verify those documents and follow the money. And there have been other jurisdictions that have dealt with not COAMs, but have dealt with gaming, and they have done exactly that, and they have stopped some of those practices. And as much as I think all of us would like it to be stopped tomorrow, I think we are building the block, and frankly, some of the points in your bill start to address that pretty strongly, and I think Representative Powell is interested in having that a part of it. But I think the whole issue of getting at following the money is critical, and I think it is something that the point that Senator Brass made is a good one. The lottery has to have a good gift card. Many of you may be familiar with it.
Les, I hate to interrupt you, but
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
We do have some
need to
speakers
get
that
back on a
want to
couple
speak in
of
support
my
of the bill.
topics, and then I don't want to monopolize the time either, but was there a consideration given to taking a different approach to inducement, such as trying to have some sort of mechanism whereby there could be, my word, in the corporate world, it would be something like profit sharing, where for locations that do much better than other locations, that the masters could pay something more, provided there was a prescribed structure for that? Did y'all consider anything like that?
I'm not very much one that believes in socialism, Senator.
Well, let me be very clear with you,
I think free
Representative,
enterprise-
neither do I, and what I'm describing is not socialism. It rather would be a lot closer form to capitalism.
But a
that-
sharing of innovation among companies.
No, that, you misunderstand what I'm saying. No, it would be where the master could pay more to the location under the contract based on the profitability of that arrangement, not sharing money between masters or between locations.
You're talking about contractual rights.
Yes, something so that they're not locked into a 45-45 split. And I'm just wondering, is that something that y'all consider? Because that's the other way to address the issue of inducements. The reason inducements exist is there's an imbalance in the profitability of the two legs of the three-legged stool. And so that's why locations can demand at times, and that's why master license holders can pay at times more to the location than the prescribed split, because it's just that profitable. And so one idea that surfaced sort of later in our process, Chairman Powell, of looking at this, was the idea of having a way that the master could pay more legally, share more, if you will, of the profits with the locations. And that also incentivizes and makes sure that masters are treating the locations well, and the locations, everybody gets to share in the profit of that particular location. I'm just wondering if y'all thought of anything like that.
The only problem that I have, and no, we did not, because we're trying to keep this industry, and we've seen historically too many issues where the bigger the dog, the more the dog eats, quite frankly. You've got master license holders of all sizes and stripes. So if you've got a bigger one, for say one that we know that's owned by venture capitalist investors, they're big time. They have a certain jurisdiction. Now, they're big enough that if they are allowed to come in and start manipulating with incentives and something like that. So historically, the only thing we had was, let's be straight up and down, 5%, 5%, with no enhancements. Now, my concern might be, but if we change that, then we would start an all-out free-for-all and destabilize this whole industry, and then we move into another phase that go back the way they once were. Let's see if we can compete for more business. That gift card works great. Let's see if we can't figure out how to get them some cash. And that's the bottom line. It's the cash inducement. The cash payouts has always been the number one concern that I had.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I've got other questions, but I don't want to monopolize the time, and I appreciate Mr. Snyder and Chairman Powell being here to answer those, and I can get some more answers probably offline. Thank you.
I don't see any other committee members with questions at this time, so I'm gonna let some of these people that signed up speak. Hope if you're still out in the hall, Mike Griffin.
Mr. Chairman,
Chairman Powell, oh, I'm sorry, that, my mic might not have been on. Mike Griffin, if you're out there, come on in.
Mr. Chairman, are y'all done with me for the day?
I am. You're welcome to stay if you'd like to hear some of the testimony, or you may be excused, and we'll catch up with you later and let you know which way we go.
I would like to thank you, gentlemen of the committee, for all of your indulgence today, and look forward to working with you.
Thanks so much.
And when the minister and I get together, you know it's got to be a good
Tell
deal.
us about the first time you two got together. Round about 2006, wasn't it?
You know, he almost wore me out at the polls.
I won't get into all that.
Reverend, what was that scorecard on that election?
I lost big time.
I was going to get you to say it while the chairman was still here. He's chuckling.
I was
on his
10
way
points out 2 weeks before the election and lost by 30. So I don't know what happened. Won one county, lost 2. But anyway.
You got driven into lobbying after that, didn't you?
Yeah, that's right.
We're
Anyway,
glad to have you
they
here,
said that's
as
where I
always.
make more money. I said, well, I guess legally. But anyway.
Senator Kennedy says you got religion after that. That's kind of funny, isn't it, Chairman Moses?
Yeah. Yes, I've been here this 14 years. So anyway. Mr. Chairman, thank you for this opportunity. Again, my name is Mike Griffin. I'm Public Affairs Representative with Georgia Baptist Mission Board. And seriously, Les Snyder and Representative Alan Powell, some of my closest friends here. And I do want to commend them, although, you know, categorically we're not in favor of gambling, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But I do commend them because they're making a very serious attempt to try to regulate or to put tighter regulations on something that everybody in this room, including those watching, knows we've got some problems in our state. With this industry, it ends up being a moral blight in many ways. I was in this room last year when Senator Larry Walker introduced a bill, and also had other folks came in and testified about some of the problems that we're having around the state. And let me just say why you're going to always have these problems to a certain extent. And let me say this, you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I understand that. But very simply, this is gambling. And I know that it doesn't meet the legal definition of gambling in the state of Georgia. But you can go over here and play this machine, and you can see that skill is definitely not at the top of the list. I'm sure you have to have your eyes working and your fingers and things. But again, we won't get into all that, but I will say this, that based on Eric Groth, who is the president of the Georgia Council on Problem Gambling, I mean, in an interview that he did in 2019 regarding some things going on in Savannah, he called it video slots. Many people call it video slot machines. Some call it video gambling. There's no doubt. And anytime you're dealing with gambling, and I don't care how you try to sanctify it or put the end to justify the means by what you're going to get from it, it's just greasy. It's slimy. It's a difficult industry to try to deal with. And while we would certainly, while we're not in favor of gambling, we'd definitely be for any tighter regulation that would help our families, because listen, there's a lot of people out there playing this, and a lot of the people that play, I think most of them, and you'll agree with me, are people that can't afford it. And it's taking more money out of people's pockets than it's putting in the pockets, and it's taking money out of buying necessities and putting it into this. And I know there is an attempt to sanctify that because it's going to Hope and other things that we try to say, sales tax, but there is only so much fruit inside the pie, and you can split it and push it into different places, but it ends up having a lot of harm. And I know that just in the interview in 2019 with this president of the Georgia Council on Problem Gambling, that 10% of their addiction cases were coming just from the Savannah area, and a lot of it has to do with this. And you know, and again, I'm not the only one that's ever said this, but this is like many casinos all over our state. And while there are very respectable convenience stores, and some of them are here today, there are others that you walk into, you walk in there yourself and look around and see who's playing and see how long they're sitting there playing. And do we really believe that this is that innocent and benign? I don't think so. It probably would have been better that we dealt with this a different way a number of years ago, but I do respect those that were trying to make an attempt to do better. Our concern, and I'll be through, is that the $50 gift card, while it does have a sense of redemptive purpose to it, I'm concerned that it's going to incentivize people to play more, which means there's no way you will win in gambling, because in gambling you have to lose more than you win. So it's going to take more money out of people's pockets than you're ever going to get back on those gift cards to ever start with. And so our concern is that it would end up, while it does have a very noble purpose behind it, incentivizing this industry, which I think will one day, and I hope will do a good job down here, and they'll never have an opportunity to compete with other gambling. But I think they're also concerned possibly that you're going to have pari-mutuel betting one day. You're going to have casinos. You're going to have sports betting. And it's going to have an impact on that industry, I think. But thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to share those thoughts with you.
As always. I'm going to try to alternate somebody for and somebody against. And folks, we're looking about 10 till 5. We're sort of scheduled to be done by 5, but I'm willing to go a little longer if anybody wants to. If somebody's ready to cry uncle and go home, let me know, because we'll be back meeting again on Tuesday, and I know we're out tomorrow, so some folks may need to go. Josh Belenfante with the Robbins firm.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Good afternoon, welcome.
I'm Josh Belenfante, as you indicated, with the Robbins firm. I represent Ultra Group of companies. I was here before. Ultra is one of the most senior companies in it's a master licensee. It's been in the business for a very long time. It got in the business initially through payphones, and then found the COAM games to be a good way to do it. We are here in full support of the House bill, as we were the last time I was here. We have been working with the association to get some tweaks. A lot of those tweaks have found its way into the committee substitute that I believe you have and I've recently seen. And we frankly found the association to be very responsive to our concerns. The things that we've asked for in the bill, Mr. Schneider already talked about. Frankly, some of them have been imported from Senate Bill 217. The transparency language, we thought it was very good to have masters provide that type of information to the lottery. We've added some stuff there, and we think that it addresses a lot of the concerns we have in the industry. Full support of it, and we would urge your favorable consideration. Unless there's any questions, I'm happy to let you get to the next speaker.
All right, I don't see any questions for the time being. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
All righty, Mr. Paul Oland.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Good afternoon.
And Senators, thanks for your time once again. I'm not going to belabor a lot of the points that you've heard before. Mr. Jaffer is here to speak on behalf of the C-store owners, and he didn't get the chance to speak when Senate Bill 217 was before you, so I'm going to keep it as short as possible so that everybody gets a chance to talk. To echo what Senator Kennedy said, our issue has always been the two issues really that came out of that study committee, and that is transparency and the inducement issue. We believe that those two things together would provide additional stability and additional maturity in the industry, and that has been the goal from my perspective, on behalf of United Gaming. From the very beginning, it was the perspective that we had at the study committee, and we felt like that study committee report that recommended additional transparency, additional disclosures by master licensees is important, and we feel like that taking on the inducement issue is important and will lead to that further professionalism and maturity of the market. This bill, as it's currently drafted, does not do that. I hear that there's a committee substitute. I have not seen it. I will thank Les. He and I spent about an hour on the phone this week talking about some of my concerns. I do think that substitute addresses some of those disclosure and transparency issues. I look forward to seeing that. But the bill.
Let me tell you how that comes about. Committee substitutes come from the committee. And I have asked people if they have suggested changes or amendments to present them to me. And if they are agreeable, then we'll combine those or some of the ideas into a committee sub. So
Great.
Nobody's seen that yet because there isn't one.
Right.
There's some suggestions, and we welcome any that you might have as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry. I understood Mr. Melanfonte indicated he had seen it, but
Yeah, he's seen a document. He hadn't seen a committee
I see.
substitute because only we prepare that.
I see. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I apologize. I'm a
It's all right.
rookie. But to the point that Mr. Schneider and I spent some time this week talking, and he was responsive to those issues about transparency. I haven't quite gotten him over the finish line on this issue of inducements yet. I'm trying. I'm pushing. But this bill, as it's drafted, does not do enough to address that inducement issue, which is why we are opposed to it. We have worked closely in the past few weeks with Mr. Jaffer and his clients, the convenience stores, the retailers. We think that Mr. Jaffer has concerns that we have adopted, that is equal representation on the COAM advisory board. And this incentive issue, this ability to lawfully incentivize locations in order to sign contracts, longer contracts, again, to bring stability to the market. I certainly commit to continuing those discussions with Mr. Schneider and anybody else. It is my hope that whatever product comes up, it will address the inducement issue, and it will address the transparency issue. Those, again, is what came out of the study committee this past fall, and what I think is going to move this industry furthest down the road. Again, I'm going to keep it short and sweet because a lot of this has been covered. I thank you for your time.
So, or did I follow that you were against this version of the bill?
Yes, sir.
Any questions, Mr. Oland? All right, Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Mr. Oland, for being here. Two questions. One, I think you really mostly addressed, and I will talk to Mr. Schneider offline as well, but you're right. From the study committee this summer, transparency was one of the real key things that bubbled to the surface that needed more of. And I don't see that in this bill, and I think that's one of the ways that it's really lacking. The other, and I'm sure you've studied this bill more than I have, is to me a shift away from the management of this, if you will, from the lottery. It looks like we've got de novo appeals going to judges, which would completely disregard what the CEO of the lottery had done in the trial court, if you will, down below, and sort of a disregard of the Georgia Lottery Corporation and their regulatory role of managing this sector of business. That's concerning to me, and it's one of the things we don't have time to get into in this hearing, but if you just take just a moment, and if you have a different take on that, or whatever your opinion is about the shift in the model significantly away from the lottery to this newly formed idea.
I don't have a different vision. I see that as well, and I have been very candid with Mr. Schneider and Chairman Powell about that. As it stands, in order to address the issues of inducements and transparency, because they're not properly addressed in this bill, we would be left with the current scheme that we have, and therefore reliant upon lottery to perform its regulatory role. And at the same time, this bill really takes, as I have said, pretty significant tools out of lottery's toolbox. You know, there's an argument to be made that there's some cases when that's necessary. I get the due process issue, but you know, this is a highly regulated industry. The law makes it very clear that the license is a privilege and not a right. You know, licensees expect to be treated differently in a highly regulated industry than in any other industry. So I agree with you that it is a shift. There's no question it's a shift. It is a shift that takes tools away from lottery that they currently have. And that is especially concerning when the bill doesn't also address those issues that we discussed, transparency, inducements, and the like.
All right, no further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Emily Dunn. Hello, Ms. Dunn.
Hello. I'd just like to make a statement, please, and I could take a question. That doesn't mean that I could be able to answer it, though, so, but I'll be glad to. But first, I'd like to thank Chairman Powell for bringing forward this good legislation. I know he's already stepped out, but also thank you, Chairman Cowser, and members of the committee for hearing this today. My name is Emily Dunn, and I've been an amusement game operator since 1984. I worked closely with my husband for years, building our business. He tragically died almost 20 years ago, but I had 2 young teenage daughters and a devoted family of employees who banded with me to keep our business moving ahead. I continue today as the CEO. My daughter works alongside me, and I have worked hard in many capacities for our great state. I've been active in my industry not only on a local level, but also on a national level as a board member and a recent past president of the National Trade Association. In 2013, I was a part of shaping a very successful piece of legislation called House Bill 487, which was carried by our good friend Senator Miller. I became a member of the COAM Advisory Board at that time, and I'm the current chairman today. The COAM industry in Georgia is mainly comprised of small, multi-generational family operations whose roots are deep across Georgia. We operate games of skill. These games of skill can only be redeemed for certain things, and cash is not one of them. That's why we're pushing for our card. The card is convenient, it is easy to use for players, it is transparent, it is easy to track and audit. A card is very highly desirable for our players. You cannot track cash. You can track a card. I'm here today to express my support for House Bill 544, as well as set the record straight that the COAM industry is closely aligned in the support of this bill. We are united in this bill as it has been closely vetted with all stakeholders and feel like it will significantly increase compliance, transparency, and help grow revenues for the Hope Scholarship and the pre-K program. There are a few operators who oppose this bill. They oppose the bill because they want to maintain the status quo. They do not want to be compliant. They do not want to be transparent. Failure to vote and move this bill ahead will lead to stagnation of the Georgia COAM industry and the Georgia lottery revenue. Voting for this bill will lead to new investment, new technology, and growth for business across Georgia. Moving this bill forward is a win-win for every citizen of Georgia because it will increase state sales tax, including each city and county SPLOST tax. Again, thank you for your time, and I ask you for your favorable support and consideration of House Bill 544.
Let me ask you just a couple, since you are unique to be an owner.
I am.
We've got a couple of games back here in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
What does one of those machines cost? I mean, you are a master licensee, so you would be the owner of the machines and, you know, locate them in the stores?
Those are quite nice, and I would say that was about $10,000 to $12,000. The latest, and I don't even know that I've seen the latest, is actually about $13,000. To be a master license holder, you have a very, very heavy capital investment. It's not easy to be a master. And I think we earn every dime that we get because our overhead, we have to pay our employees very well because they are highly skilled. They have to be very trustworthy. We can't hire just anyone to handle, well, first of all, expensive pieces of equipment, much less money and high tech and high, I guess, it is just very high tech, but it's very important to have trustworthy people that you work with.
So if you're a store owner, I mean, you're splitting the money 45-45 with the store owner, right?
I am. I
So-
feel very passionately about that because of the heavy capital investment that we have. I feel like the store owner pays a yearly fee, $125 per game. They do provide electricity.
And floor space for you.
And
Yeah.
floor space, so it's small
And
square
customers.
footage. It's a great return on that square footage. I can tell you that it's much better than potato chips.
What is the return? What's the daily or annual profitability of a machine?
Well, I will tell you that back in 2013, when this bill changed our industry, our games looked a lot different. Sadly, they were these little wooden cabinets. They were, it was a very, at times, they would get broken into, so most games had big padlocks on them, and they were very shabby looking. Now our industry has really cleaned up because of the heavy investment that the master license have put into it, and so now the games look so much better. So back when we first got on there with the lottery, the net hold per day, the net for each machine was $65 a day. Today, because of the new technology, it is around $125 a day. We would like to have a card, and I will. I'm a small operator of Class B, but I am a large operator of kiddie games, and we use a card system in kiddie games. I would like the same. It's a little bit different than what I would use for kiddie games for sure. It's not trackable or transparent. It's transparent in some ways because I can see what the games they play. But
Senator Mullis has a question for you.
okay, but our kiddie games go up probably about 20 to 30% when we put a card system in.
So how much you get per day on a kiddie game?
Oh, $20, maybe $100.
Okay.
This small amount.
Mr. Chairman, I think the kiddie game is what Senator Harper plays a lot when he goes into Thank you for being here, Emily. I appreciate that. I know there's several different sizes of master license. You would be referred to as a medium-sized master license. Is that right? Or are you a large master license?
Actually, I would consider myself a small because
okay.
I have probably around 100 Class B games. I think that's pretty small in the
Okay.
whole scheme of things.
I just want to make sure Senator Kennedy knows I'm not going any further with that question, but I just
Yeah.
want to clarify what position you are in.
I will say that I have merged my company with another company
Mhm.
that has my business is small
Okay.
for a couple of reasons, and it's because I do operate within the confines of the law. I work hard with the state of Georgia in multiple levels, and I do operate with compliance.
All right.
And that has limited my ability to invest heavily. So,
I understand. Well, thank you again for being here.
Okay,
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Mullis ever play up there on your games? He's in your neck of the woods. isn't he?
not yet. I think I would know it if he did.
That's on a different mountain range.
I got it.
Yeah, I have to go a long way over there.
The $125 per machine per day, is that your cut as the master licensee or the total that you're splitting
That
three
is
ways?
actually a lottery number. That came straight from the lottery from our COAM advisory board meetings. They update us quarterly on these type
I'm just wondering
data.
who gets that money? That's money left in the machine after the players have lost that much per machine per day?
That's the money that we split between the master, the location,
They could've
and the
won.
lottery.
All right,
They could have won though, Mr. Chairman.
fair enough. Thank you. So, well, I got one more question.
Okay.
Senator Brass has one, then we'll let the next speaker come in.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Dunn, for being here.
Thank
So, all right, you're small. I'm just trying to get all this in my head, and you helped me out the other day as we discussed this. But so you're a small master licensee. And then is in United, who was just in here, and I think we're having another person from United, they're considered a large master licensee.
I would consider them large.
And I'm going to ask them the same question when they do come back.
Okay.
But what is it that you like about this bill that they don't?
We worked really hard for many hours with them trying to get on the same page, and we got on the same page in many ways. The fraternals, the card, that kind of thing. I think where what I like about it is the card and the transparency. What they, I think, are just really disappointed in is the lack of a legal inducement or incentive, whichever way you want to put it. I think that is a very, very difficult thing to legislate and regulate. So that's pretty much, it does create an unequal playing field for operators, and it does maintain the status quo. It is not going to change things for the better. It will not allow for growth and improving. I would like to think that in 10 years our games are going to look even better. I hope not much bigger. I hope maybe smaller.
You're not a small one anymore. You got bought out, right?
No, I am small. I work with Bulldog, but we're still considered Tom's Amusement. I am the CEO. I still have all my employees.
Oh, I thought I heard that an Illinois company bought you guys.
Well, there is a family company that is over Bulldog, and they are a large operator.
Right.
But I'm considered a small operator. So.
And if these gift cards come to fruition, do you think that changes the daily take from each of these machines?
Absolutely. I
What do
think
you
it'll
think
go up.
happens?
I think it'll go up 20 to 30%.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
David Jaffer. Y'all hang in there. We only got two more. Anybody needs to go, want to stay married, you can leave. Some people, some wives think we got out of here at, 12 o'clock today. Welcome, David.
Good afternoon, sir. I am David Jaffer, and I know there's been a little bit of confusion about United and United. There is United Gaming, which is a master licensee, and United C-Stores, whom I represent, and we are a trade association that now have 3,500 independent store owners, and that is over 61% of this industry. Our association participated, provided input to the Senate Study Committee that was chaired by Senator Kennedy. We provided data and our vision of what we think where we need to be with this industry. And since then, I've said it at the Study Committee meeting, and I continue to say it, that for any legislation, any policy, association puts a filter on it. It's a three-prong test. Is proposed legislation good for state of Georgia? You all make the ultimate decision. Can the lottery administer that legislation? Certainly you would want to hear that from the Georgia Lottery. And whether it is equitable to the GLCs, the locations, and the master. And of course we use the word equitable and not fair because everybody's got their own definition of what is fair. We oppose this bill for the following reasons. One, it attempts to reorganize the COAM Advisory Board and it powers the board with additional authority. There has been a complete lack of representation in the COAM Advisory Board of the independent C-store owners. And most of the board members are master licensees. You have 160 master licensees and 5,700 location, and yet we lack representation. So that is our certain concern with this language that's in this HB 544. We've got different language and a different structure that we think addresses that balance more equitably. And we're happy to provide that whenever there's a substitute bill. Gift card, we've heard a lot about gift card. The only thing I want to say about gift card is there are two types of gift cards, and we want to make sure that there's no confusion. There's one gift card that the lottery is piloting now. Let them pilot, we'll reserve our comments. All the other gift cards that we've heard are the type you see in the grocery stores, the CVS, and the convenience stores. The problem we have with the gift card is the way the language is written. And in page 6 of the bill towards the bottom, it describes the gift card as electronic payment device issued for a specific amount, and it may or may not be reloaded. Further, it states, it is provided or loaded on a prepaid basis for the future purchase. Well, there's a lot missing there. We want to know, are we talking about the credit type gift cards or the debit type gift cards? They're open loop, closed loops. There's some gift cards that if somebody wins a COAM, they put it on the Walmart type of gift card. Who's responsible for the compliance of how it's used? Is it retailer? If it's the retailer, then how much control do we have and how much protection do we have? There are other costs associated with these cards. Who's going to bear that cost? Is it going to be lottery? Is it going to be masters? Is it going to be location? Or is it going to be the players? So there's a lot missing. The problem with this bill is this big industry that we represent on the location side just hadn't been consulted. If we had, we would have flagged these issues early on and probably had something that looks a little bit different. Because those folks who have to administer this on a daily basis, I think should be able to weigh in of what they know about the gift card. So certainly appreciate the lottery's gift card. I'm not sure if the language is adequate. I think there are risks that we could see that are not being addressed. So that would be our concern there. And this appeal process that even Senator Kennedy brought up, when HB 487 was written in 2013, it did not really adequately address the appeal process. It was later in 2015, SB 190, that created our current structure. Our current structure is working. It ain't broke. Let's not try to fix it. Because if you're going to start creating language that's here, as a practitioner before the lottery and before the Fulton Superior Court that's referenced in this legislation, I am confused about what the rights are and how do I appeal for my clients. I shared it with other lawyers. They're also concerned that there's a lack of clarity. And there's a reference to SB 1319. That has its own selection of venue. So do we go to Fulton Superior or do we go to other courts? I think, with all due respect to Representative Powell, it may have been a good start, but I think the big input from this group was missing, and so that's why we have the product that we have. We certainly look forward to working with him, his committee, and anybody else that wants to work with us. Finally, there is this elephant in the room about inducements. I'd say if I had to take a reality check, they're probably 90%. I would almost like to say, no location's bringing a master in unless there's an inducement. That's the fact. Because the convenience stores are used to getting incentives from their jobbers, from Coke, from Pepsi, the candy bar company, and here we have this piece of equipment that takes up their space that has got this artificial barrier, and by calling it inducement, we pretend that it doesn't exist. If we are really interested in a transparency, stability, and an industry that makes sense, we need to address this. Inducement may be bad. Well, let's paper it up. Let's call it incentive, because that's what they are, and that is going to get rid of a lot of issues that are currently plaguing this industry. It's happening. It's just dark money, and all we're asking for is some legitimacy to make that happen. So those are our 4 concerns with the bill. I'm happy to work on the improvement, but we oppose this bill on behalf of the 3,500 convenience store owners.
All right, I'm a little hung up. Why do y'all care if people pay cash? Wouldn't that just be simpler? Why does the government need to track what people spend their winnings on? They got to pay sales tax if they pay cash or credit card or debit card.
I mean, if we could do it, of course, there are a practitioner who would say that, look, you need a constitutional amendment. I happen to be one of them. Somebody asked if it were a lottery machine, could you pay cash? Well, if lottery
They do it all the time. You go cash
Well,
a ticket and
yeah,
you get cash.
Exactly. So if you win so here's sort of the twisted logic that is present. A consumer plays a COAM. Consumer wins $100. You're not allowed to pay cash. Consumer trades it in for a $10 ticket and wins $100. Well, guess what? You're getting $100 cash. So, I mean, it's indirectly
It's a
the way
cash
it
equivalent.
happens. So whether you, you know, get us to reform the Constitution and say, okay, let's just allow cash, certainly that's one way to go. You know, if you say, well, we'll let lottery deal with it and lottery pay, well, that's, you know, that's another way to go. Would location owner prefer to pay cash? Absolutely. It'll make their job a lot easier. And those customers who want cash and won't take any other method of redemption, you know, you got to get into an argument with them. And I think everybody knows who practices industry, the cash payment is widely, it's happening. We can't pretend here, call these machines Pac-Man. We can't sit here and say inducement doesn't happen. We can't say the cash doesn't get paid out. So the 3,500 stores that I represent, we want transparency. We're honest with you. You can ask any questions. We may not have the best answer for you, but at least we want to see this industry improve. Even though you may like the industry, you may not. If we're going to have it, let's make it better.
Okay. This machine back here that we've been allowed to play today looks like a slot machine. Have you seen it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And the only skill involved in that is at the very end, when the wheels stop, you have the right to move one of the three wheels, and you can see what the choices are.
Sure.
And
Understood.
do you consider that a game of skill?
Well, I mean, you know, I don't downplay it and say there's a high degree of skill required. We can sort of debate of how much skill do you need, and if the Georgia legislation want to say that, look, that's not enough skill. We need to up the ante, and we need to have better games. Certainly, you're all certainly can mandate that, because there are certain card games that we said you can't play. So you have the ability to say, it's a little too easy, we don't like it, that's your privilege, that's your prerogative.
I think that you and Chairman Powell have about convinced me these are games of chance, and that a card is a cash equivalent, not really any different, and we probably do need a constitutional amendment for the people of Georgia must weigh in on that before we go this direction, but I'm not certain yet. We'll smoke it over.
Our stores
question from you.
our stores would prefer the cash payout, but I don't want to say that this is a game of chance, because, you know, even though you need some
Because then
eyesight,
it's
you need
gambling. I
coordination.
get you. You don't want to say,
Right.
Senator Brass, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it Jaffer? Is that right? Okay,
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Jaffer. I want to go back to that. You said Coca-Cola and the candy bar people, whatever, Mr. Goodbar, they're paying incentives to the convenience stores. What does that look like?
Sure.
Walk me through that, please.
Sure. So let's say that I own a convenience store, and it's a gas station and a convenience store, and I need to buy fuel from somebody, so I contract with the jobber.
Mm-hmm.
And if the jobber says, I'm going to have a long-term contract, whatever the terms are, and I said, all right, fine, you're going to send me this fuel for the next 10 years, what are you willing to give me? And the jobber will say, well, I can give you cash, I can write you a check, I can update your parking lot, I will pay for the imaging of the brand that I'm proposing, I will change your systems inside. There are no restrictions on what these two parties can negotiate. And so that's the jobber side. If we're dealing with Coke and Pepsi, obviously both of them want the most amount of space in your convenience store, and the associations I work with, they've got a full board that sits down with these large companies and negotiates a deal. If we buy X amount of cases, or if we give you X amount of space on these cooler doors, what will our members get in terms of pricing discount? What kind of rebate are we going to get? And so those are then passed on to the members. And candy bars the same way. If you buy 10 of them, then maybe you get a bonus, which when the retailer sells it, turns into cash. So that's what the industry is used to, that is having to fight this inducements.
So does the state regulate those in any way?
Not
Or federal? Is there federal regulation on that?
Not when it comes to these contractual agreements of the length of term between a jobber or a manufacturer of a candy bar or a distributor of these products. It's really between
Free market.
Free market. And we would like to see COAM become a little more towards the free market. That's the only way you're going to get transparency.
Is it not free market now?
It's not free market now for several reasons. One, I think the gift card may, is it going to get rid of all the cash payouts? Probably not. Is it going to go a significant way in addressing it? Absolutely. So if I'm a convenience store owner, which I used to be, and if I can't pay cash because I know it's legal, my reputation's important to me, I don't want to be banned by lottery, then what choice do I have? I don't have any choice. But if I had the gift card, and if gift card was done correctly so that no alcohol and tobacco could be purchased, I now have an alternative. And if I still want to break the rule, I do it at my own peril. Currently, the masters are providing inducements, and locations are accepting. So if we paper this up and make it legitimate, legal, then, again, you don't have the gray market, the economy that's currently is there. I don't think it's good for anybody. Certainly not, it's not good for the state. Lottery can't administer it because they don't know how often this is happening.
Right.
And my third point was, is it equitable? I mean, how is it equitable when the dark money's floating around? Who does that benefit?
So and I'm just trying to, the inducement seems to me the biggest hang-up on, maybe I'm wrong on that, but just, it seems to me like the inducements is, and I'm trying to work through this, are y'all suggesting that it should be legal but still left up to the free market as to what that looks like? Or are we wanting to structure it? What is,
Right.
I'm learning. I'm seriously not
so
trying
the
to walk you
closest-
down anything here.
Appreciate the question. Closest, and it's a good question. The closest example is, let's compare it to the fuel contract. When a jobber comes to the location, the jobber is going to look at the location. It's going to realize, how much do I have to put this to make it right? Look at the past history of what kind of volume of gasoline that's being pumped out, and what type of business owner I'm dealing with. Have I done with this guy before? Is he always pricing his, a little too high than the competition, so I won't push as much gasoline? Based on those factors, the jobber will say, I'm willing to offer you X.
Okay.
And if the location doesn't want to accept it, he'll call another brand and saying, my contract's up, I need a new jobber. Same thing should happen with masters, we believe, that a master can make a decision on whether they want to pay anything at all. But whatever they're going to pay in terms of incentive, let's have it above board.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Senator Mullis, do you have a question?
No, I just have a comment. That happens in the grocery store industry too, somewhat, about shelving space and end caps and all that, about how they make that deal. So it's not like uncommon.
You got special knowledge on the grocery business?
I go there often.
Well, and just so I'm clear, Mr. Chairman, not to jump out of order here, but, and all that's legal, but by law, it's not legal in COAM world?
That's right. Inducements are prohibited by the current statutes.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Sheila Hummerstone.
Thank you.
Come on in, Georgia Association of Convenience Stores. Mr. Lindsay, if you'll just wait out there, I figure I better have ladies first here. We'll get you next and last.
Yeah. Hey.
Hey.
So, well, let me start with Wayne Howard is here. He has made it, if you still are inclined to hear his bill this afternoon. Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Angela Holland. I represent the Georgia Association of Convenience Stores, and we represent about a third of the convenience stores in the market. I believe my members operate COAM legally. I do not believe that my members neither pay cash nor accept illegal payouts or illegal inducements. And certainly, by following the laws, I believe my members are placed at a competitive disadvantage. I think one of the most important things in this bill is the ability to use the gift card as a legal form of redemption. We believe it will create a cleaner industry. Sure. And I think one of the most important things in this bill is subjecting the COAM division of the lottery to the Administrative Procedures Act. I think that has important implications for our industry, and I think it would be comparative to what is happening now with the Department of Revenue. You know, we get a 30-day notice and have time to make comments, and I think that would be a good thing for our industry. And it changes the 50-50 rule from a monthly rule to a quarterly rule, and I think that helps with the ebbs and flows of income in a store. And that was all I had to say.
Questions by committee members? Senator Brass, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. All right, Ms. Holland, so
Yes, sir.
help me through this. And the inducements, I'm still trying to figure this whole thing out. So your members, they're doing everything legal, and we will agree with that.
Of course, thank
So
you.
they're doing everything legally. Why would you not want a master license to be able to come in and give your members more money? Walk me through that.
I don't necessarily think they would come in and give my members more money,
You think they would go elsewhere?
especially if those other retailers are paying out in cash and those games are grossing.
Well, but we're getting rid of the cash. I mean, that's what this bill does. It gets rid of the cash. So if there's an opportunity, to me, if there's an opportunity for a member to make more money, and Sheila, I'm not trying to put you on a trap here. I'm just trying to understand this.
And we relish the opportunity to have the conversation. It makes all of us better, and we want a bill that works, certainly. I mean, I think that has always been the challenge of bringing any COAM-related bill to the forefront, is making sure that we're not inadvertently creating loopholes. I think a couple of the questions, the concerns that we may have, Angela's right, is do you create a perverse incentive to pay cash because then you're going to be a more profitable location, and so there the cycle just continues. Yes, you have a gift card, but does that mean more people are likely to use cash anyway because they're going to get more traffic in the store and they're going to be more inclined to be incentivized by their master license? I think the other problem is we've made it illegal, and if it happens in some places, legalizing some of it is not going to stop the illegal behavior happening on top of it. So if you legalized 10%, 20%, a flat dollar amount, do we think that that's going to stop somebody from giving additional money under the table as well? And so I think those are the reasons that I have been very hesitant to walk down that, how do we legalize it? Because it increases the cost of business, but it's not necessarily going to stop the bad behavior, we don't think.
Well, who's paying who? I thought the master license was paying the operator.
Yes. If that is happening, then that is what I would
And
believe.
y'all's members are the operators, correct?
Our members are the convenience stores, the locations, so we are the place where those machines are gonna reside. So let's pretend you are a master license and you think my corporate store is the best location in the world, and I'm a bad actor in the locations. I might ask you for a little something on the side in order to make sure that I pick you as my master license over Chairman Cowsert. And so that's sort of where the rub comes. And so you might legalize a part of it, but that's not going to stop somebody from offering something above the illegal amount.
So you're worried, y'all's concern is the 2/3 that you don't represent are going to be taking business from the third that you do represent.
I think we
and
just
the inducement, is that kind
I think
of?
we just continue to reward bad behavior. And that's the concern, is when you're operating under the confines of the law, then you're at a competitive disadvantage, right? If somebody is paying in cash and getting dollars in an illegal inducement, then they're able to drop the prices of products in their store. They're able to do things in a way that a traditional corporate store is just not able to do, or is not willing to do.
Okay.
Y'all like the current split, 45, 45, 10, or do you think the store operators ought to get a bigger cut of the pie? Apparently, some licensees are willing to pay you more, which essentially reduces their share.
Here's what I would argue. Everyone would always love more money, right? I mean, ask anybody and they're going to tell you yes. I think the things to consider is these games are they're capital intensive. And people like to play a variety of different games, right? And so you may put two vanilla games, an IGT game, and a Pace-O-Matic game in your store. And 2 or 3 of them are doing well, one of them's not doing well, and so you want to trade them out. And again, that's very capital, and that's a capital investment for those masters that they have to make sure that they've got the ability to, if the game's not performing, to go out and put a new game in. That if the players start getting bored and they need to just even sort of redo the space, that they have the ability to do that. And I think, some of the fears are, at what point is the master lesser inclined to have the best in the marketplace on the floor, and that money is generated absolutely for our benefit and absolutely for the benefit of the master licensee, but for sure for the benefit of the Hope Scholarship as well. So, I think before I could comment on if there is a better or a different tax rate, that would be, I'm not an economics person. Ironically, I have a graduate degree in public health. So I'd have to do some economic forecasting to see, where is that sweet spot where we would continue to get investments in games.
Why should we even have master licensees?
I think.
Why shouldn't stores be allowed to just buy your own machines? They're only 10 or 12 grand and you make 125
I think,
a day.
Again, you make a great point, and I would
Or lease one, or maybe let the lottery own them and get a bigger cut of this pie.
And I think certainly you make a great point there, and I would go back to what I had just said. The challenge is people like to play new and different games all the time, and if you've got a master license and you've got, like Ms. Dunn has, she acknowledged she has, I think she said 100 locations or 100 games, something like that. Let's pretend it's 100 games. Then she may have 25 of one manufacturer, 25 of another, 25 of a third, and she can move those around within her platform and keep the games interesting for the players. Whereas when you're a convenience store, if you're going to invest in 5 games, 4 games, and these are the 4 games, it's going to be very hard for you in 6 months or in a year to go, oh, this one's not performing real well, and I'm excited about bringing a new one in. And so I think if our ultimate goal for all of us is that we all do well, the masters do well, the location does well, and the lottery does well, then we want to see that game excitement continue to be generated. And again, everybody would always like more money, right? But we're trying to find that sweet spot.
Okay. I've had a lot of comments from other committee members that the lottery share is too low. What's your view on that? Are y'all willing to share the pot a little bit more? What if we increase their cut to, 25% and reduced your guys 12.5 and the master licensees 12.5? What type of a burden would that be?
I mean, I think we'd have to look at the economics of does that change whether or not folks are going to be excited to put games in the stores? Does that change the number of machines that a master is going to want to put in a store? Are they going to decide they're only going to put 2 in or 3 in? I'm certainly happy to have some of those conversations so that I can get more comfortable with those kinds of thoughts.
Okay. Because I'm just doing the rough math in my head. If there's 9 machines per store and they're making 125 a day, what's that give us, Captain? 1,100 a day? So you're making over, a whole bunch of money, $30,000 a month, or at least half of that, I guess.
And not everyone has 9 games in there. It really does depend on the size of the location and the amount of traffic that you get in.
Okay.
Could I have just a moment to clarify a couple things that I heard earlier on? I heard some comments on sort of what makes us not gambling. And I think the chairman talked about cash, but I would argue that the some skill requirement is really what makes us not gambling. Some skill as outlined in 161235. That was also affirmed by the Supreme Court in 2010 with the Ultra et al. Versus the state, where they said, in fact, these games have enough skill to not be gambling devices. It may not be certain legislators' idea of enough skill.
Yeah, we might need to get the Supreme Court to come down here and take a spin, see if they still feel that way.
It really did. It was a Bodiford decision affirmed by this that went through all the way to the Supreme Court, like I said, 2010, and I can send it to you. It's Ultra et al. Versus the state, and that affirmed that some skill was enough skill to not be gambling. I think the other thing to always remember is you're winning $5 per play. $5. And so that's also what makes us different. You're not putting in a $1 bill and winning a $1,000 jackpot. You put in a $1 bill and you win $5. And all of our games, if any of you have had a chance to play them, I assume they're hooked up by the lottery, and so they have all of their normal regulations. They have a hand count on them, and that hand count makes everybody understand where you are in the $5 per play. So I think that's a very important consideration. The other thing I wanted to mention is that 161235 does allow for the use of gift certificates for redemption. And so really if we're gonna make the argument of what's the difference between a gift card or a gift certificate, there's not much of one. It's just that technology has changed since that statute was originally drafted. But what it does do in 1612 is it also says that it has to be on site. So it allows for that gift certificate to be given, but if it's at corporate store number 1, they can give a corporate store number 1 gift certificate, but they can't take that certificate to corporate store number 2 with the same ownership. So I think that's an important piece to remember. We already allow gift certificates in the current law. They're just not transferable to different locations. And so if we've already said gift certificates are not cash and they are legal under the current regulatory scheme, then I would argue that a gift card is not any meaningful different than a gift certificate, especially as long as it doesn't have the ability to sort of get cash back for whatever you don't use. Those were my main points. I can probably talk ad nauseum.
But these were meant to be games to increase sales at a store.
That's right.
And that's why a card in the same store, it was a way to induce people to shop in your store.
That's right.
Just like a Chuck E. Cheese, you can play skee ball and win some little tickets and get an extra piece of pizza or whatever.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
The challenge has been, though, let's pretend that you've won $50 and you've played enough to have $50 in this corporate store and you've already filled up your gas. What are you going to buy for $50? It'd be great if you're on the road and you're going to be at that same owner's store, but 100 miles down the road to be able to buy it still in that same store. So that on-premise, off-premise redemption really matters.
Gotcha. I got one more speaker and I'm about
Yes,
to
sir.
lose my
We appreciate
quorum.
your time and thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Lindsay, thanks for your patience, if you're still out there.
It's never good to be the last.
No, we're rapt attention here. You're speaking against the bill. Tell us why.
We're speaking in favor of pause the bill because there are simply too many uncertainties at the present time. You've heard already from one large organization that represents a lot of independent stores that they oppose the bill. You've heard from other master license holders that oppose the bill. Other master license favor the bill. Let me get rid of one sort of misnomer that this is the little guys versus the big guys, because one of the biggest operators in the country, a company called Excel, wants to come into the state, and they like the model of the gift card, the reloadable gift cards, and that's why they are pushing for this now. So it's not a matter of one little guy versus a big guy. I'm here today on behalf of a company called Lucky Bucks, which is one of the larger operators here in the state of Georgia. We've come into the state, we've worked well with locations, we've worked well with the GLC, we've worked well with other master license holders, we've worked well with the General Assembly. We believe very strongly that an industry such as ours, when we come to you with an industry bill, there should be an industry-wide agreement regarding the merits of the bill. I recall several weeks ago in this meeting, y'all heard, for instance, discussion between the brewers and the wholesale beer distributors. And there was a joke even that maybe they need to get a picture of them hugging, because they came to you not fighting with each other, but they came to you with an agreement between the various folks to enhance the industry as a whole. We simply don't have that here today, as you've heard from the various folks who've testified. And as you look at very different versions of what it will take to improve the industry from the bill that Senator Kennedy proposed versus the bill that my good friend Alan Powell is proposing. Two very different versions. That calls for additional time. And keep in mind, we've been working hard on this issue. My client, for instance, as Chief Operating Officer in the company. A gentleman by the name of Jamie Bowden, as a matter of fact, served on the study committee and worked very closely with Senator Kennedy, worked very closely with other senators that were on that committee, worked very closely with GMOA, worked very closely with other master license holders, worked very well with other store operators, such as the ARA folks represented by Mr. Jaffer, to try to come up with a consensus. We simply are not there yet. And if we're not there on an industry like this, we really ought to be taking a little extra time before we move forward. That's one of our key points. But let me also sort of talk on something, because we've talked about gift cards. And we are of the opinion that we ought to be pausing specifically. That's one of the key issues that we ought to be pausing on. Why? Because we have already right now a pilot program that the GLC is working on to see how these gift cards operate actually in this state. We don't have a history. The last time that gift cards like this were operating in the state was 25 years ago. We really don't have a history in terms of how they operate. Do they, for instance, add to additional sales, or do they simply cannibalize already existing sales? Do they help the lottery or not? The proponents say they do because of the sales tax, et cetera. But keep in mind, a lot of y'all have been focusing, understandably because of the discussions, for instance, on the 10% that the GLC gets of the cut. That's only a portion of the benefits to the lottery folks, and therefore to the Hope Scholarship. A big portion of what they get in terms of enhancements and helping the Hope Scholarship is when folks redeem their winnings for lottery tickets. Will the existence of a gift card take away from that or not? We don't know. That's why we have a pilot program, and my client is actually participating in that pilot program through 7 stores that it operates with. All we are saying today is, let's take a look, and we're saying this not just because we're good guys, although I think we're good guys, and I think we operate well within the law, and there are some certain things that we think should be improved on in order to help the folks doing it right, such as my client, don't get hurt by folks who are not doing it right. But we want to make sure that this partnership that we have with you, the General Assembly, with the GLC, for instance, which is largely dependent on the Hope Scholarship, is not somehow damaged by the cannibalization of how folks redeem their winnings. We want to make sure of that because we have, quite frankly, profited from that relationship, profited from the fact that we are doing good things for the lottery and for the Hope Scholarship, and we want to make sure that it continues to do so. That pilot program has been begun. Like I said, we have 7 stores, for instance, operating with it. All we are saying is, guys, something like the gift card ought to be put on, specifically put on pause until after the pilot program is finished. Underneath this bill, a gift card is mandated. That ability of the GLC to look at whether or not this is a program that's actually helping customers, helping the stores, helping master license holders, and specifically for your concern, helping the Hope Scholarship. We simply don't know. And that's one reason why we are asking for a pause here today. A lot of the other folks who come in here and testified that they don't want this bill moving forward have covered a lot of the issues already, and I don't want to belabor that point too much more, other than I do want to sort of point out a couple of things real quick, one of which Senator Kennedy pointed out regarding the use of the gift card toward the 50-50 rule. Now, mind you, I haven't seen the changes that my friend Les Schneider has, and I'll be happy to take a look at it. But that is something of a concern of ours because a lot of our customers are convenience stores, and we don't want to do anything that hurts the convenience stores that allows for a different entity to be set up, for instance, that simply just sells gift cards but nothing else, and they can count that toward the 50-50 rule and therefore hurts the convenience stores. We certainly don't want to see that happen because the convenience stores are our partners in all of this. That's just one aspect. A question was raised real quickly, and I'm trying to do it very quickly because I do realize that I'm at the end of the day. But there was also the issue regarding the charities that I found interesting. We very much agree with Senator Harbison and other folks that want to try to help the veterans. But the way the bill is written right now, it's kind of curious that the charities who can be involved have to be in existence for 10 years, but a bingo operation, and I'm not real sure how the bingo operation is part of this or not, but a bingo operation, no matter when it was started, apparently can be part of it. I'm not real sure why the bingo is even in there or not. Is that something in specific, somebody specifically trying to help someone? Also, the charities are not limited to those charities operating already in the state of Georgia, as opposed to simply identity coming in from someplace else. That's just an example, and we've talked with several of you regarding the bill, regarding certain details that are simply not worked out. The 50-50 rule, as it applies to convenience stores and other things are of great concern to us. We do appreciate some of the things that are in there regarding the legislative procedures when there's a dispute. There's some good stuff in there. We are also concerned because, once again, our clients are the locations that feel like this advisory board that's being given additional powers is not properly representational of the industry as a whole. And keep in mind, one of my clients is on that board. But nevertheless, we want to make sure that it's fully representational of the entire industry before we give additional power to it. I'm trying to skip around and make sure that I don't simply just do what someone else has done. Ask yourself, we don't really have a problem with the redeemable for any kind of good, but we want to ask yourself, is that something that y'all really want to do? Basically, what this bill does is it takes away some of the regulatory power of the GLC, expands the industry, doesn't do anything to address the issues that Senator Kennedy and his committee looked at in terms of trying to handle some of the issues regarding the kickback issues and the transparency and the security that we think is so important when it comes to who gets to play in the games. For all those reasons, for that which is already in the bill and that which is not in the bill and that which folks totally disagree in, you don't have a situation like you did a few weeks ago when you had the craft brewers and the wholesalers come in. Instead, you've got folks fighting with each other. And we don't think that's good for this industry because this is a good industry. My client is very proud to be operating in this state. My client believes that it plays by the rules and wants to continue to operate in this state and wants a good, clean industry in order to do so. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And I find that most of the bills in this committee are struggles between competitors in different regulated industries. And you guys are always, well, you're not always able to reach agreements, but you're always trying to reach agreements. And I view our role as looking after those 11 million citizens of Georgia that your various industries may be affecting. And in this particular instance, we worry about all those kids that need pre-K programs and need college scholarships, which is the only reason in law that we have created this COAM industry. And that was why it's under the lottery board. And let's not forget that, committee. Any questions?
And that, Mr. Chairman, is why we think you need to pause and go slowly with this gift card to make sure that money that's already going to the Hope Scholarship through the redeeming process continues.
Does your group see a difference between cash and a gift card, or is that just a cash equivalent?
We do understand the difference, and that's one reason for going slowly with the pilot program, to make sure that we get it right, to make sure that we maintain that distinction, and that blurring of the line does not get lost. That's why we want to walk slowly and make sure that distinction is maintained so that folks don't get confused between the difference.
The only difference I'm seeing is you can save your cash. If you get a gift card, you got to spend it. You can go anywhere you want to spend it. You can go on vacation, go to Europe if you want to. I'm sure they'll take it at a Marriott or something, but you eventually got to spend it. And you could save your cash if you're a little more thrifty than I am. I still spend 10% more than I make. How about y'all?
I don't make any.
All right, let's get out of here and go spend some money. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.